There comes a moment, I think, in every man's life when the mirror stops showing you your reflection and instead it starts showing you your wounds. So you've done all the right things. You've tried, you've grown, and maybe you've even gone to therapy. And maybe you've learned to self-regulate. You've you've stopped yelling. You've become more emotionally intelligent because you've worked on yourself. But something still feels off because you say you're ready, but inside you're still hiding. Because there's this version of you that no one has yet met, and not even you. A version that you've buried under performance, buried under the pain, under all the trying. See, self improvement is not self connection. See, you can change your habits and still be a stranger to your heart. You can be well read and still emotionally unreachable. You can be calm and kind and respectful and still disconnected. And that's what she feels. She doesn't feel your kindness, she feels more so your absence. She doesn't feel your logic, she feels your lack of being present. She senses that you're holding back, and thus she doesn't feel safe. See, that's the thing about intimacy. You can't fake it. You can't perform your way into it. You can't logic your way through it. And you say you want a woman who's honest. But the question is, are you honest with yourself? You say you want to be seen, but are you willing to reveal the version of you that still feels unlovable? Because the truth is this, the parts of you that feel most unworthy, those are the exact parts that need to be touched by love. Not fixed and not shamed, they just need to be seen and seen first by you. See, if you haven't actually faced yourself, you're not ready for someone else. And that's not a judgment. It's that should be a relief. Because this isn't about perfection, it's about integrity. And integrity doesn't mean that you have it all figured out. It actually means that your inner world and your outer world are in alignment. Integrity is the courage to stop hiding. Okay? And that's where this all begins. See, before you touch her, before you ask her for softness or her openness or her trust, ask yourself, have I made a home for those things inside myself first? Or am I still outsourcing my worth to her for her approval? Because here's what no one, I think, tells you. She can't feel safe with you if you're still unsafe with yourself. If you punish your own emotions, she's going to flinch at yours. And if you hide your shame beneath performance, she'll feel that wall. And if you fake confidence but still hate who you are when you're alone, well, her body will feel that sense of dissonance, even if her words don't say it out loud. See, women aren't magic, but they are sensitive. And they feel what you won't say. They react to the you that you have abandoned, not the one that you're posting about. And that's why she pulls away. That's why intimacy feels blocked. And that's why even when you're doing everything right, it still fails to land. Because what she's asking for is not perfection, it's actually presence. Presence that starts with self contact, not self avoidance, and not performance. And for that matter, not control either. Just your truth. There's a version of you underneath the surface, the one that flinches, the one that doubts, the one that still hears voices from your past whispering, you're not enough, and you're too sensitive, and you'll never be chosen if you show that part of yourself. See, that version never got to grow. It just learned to perform. So you got strong and you got clever, and you got smooth, and you learned how to say the right things, and you learned how to earn approval. But the version of you that's still holding the pain, that's the one that she can't feel. That's the one that you've buried behind the charm and the confidence and the good behavior. But intimacy, it doesn't respond to performance. It actually responds to presence. And presence requires access. Access to your own pain, access to your own longings, access to the truth that you've been hiding from yourself even. See, you might be standing right next to her, but if you're not with yourself, you're not really with her either. Because the moment that she leans in, the moment that she gets close, the mask gets a little bit tighter, and you offer her your best self, your clean self, your evolved self, but not your honest self, not the messy, uncertain, scared, tender self, the self that needs. And so, without knowing why, she pulls away. She doesn't feel your hunger, your ache, your heartbeat. Instead, she feels something else. She feels your self-rejection, like it's her rejection. She feels your emotional absence, like it's her fault. She feels your walls and assumes that they're about her, but they're not. They're actually about you. And it's the you that you've never allowed to exist in full view. The child who needed to be perfect, to be loved. The teen who learned that desire made you weak. The man who decided that it was better to be impressive than to be vulnerable. See, you've survived by becoming who people need you to be. But that survival mode has now in essence become your prison. See, you don't need to evolve again. You need to reintroduce yourself to you. Okay? Because that's where integrity begins. Not with a better version of you, but with the real one. See, she's not waiting for your resume. She's actually waiting for your presence. She's waiting to feel if you're actually in the room with yourself. And if you're not, she's going to feel it as confusion, and she'll feel it as a tension point. She'll feel it as, I don't know, it might sound like I don't know what's wrong, but something feels off kind of a feeling. And then you'll interpret that as rejection. And you'll say, I did everything right. I was so good to her. And she says that she wants vulnerability, but pulls away when I offer it. But here's the thing. If the vulnerability that you offer is still wrapped in self-protection, it's not vulnerability. It's actually, that's performance. And let me say, women can feel the difference. And for that matter, so can you. You know when you're posturing. You know when you're holding something back, right? You know when you're pretending to be okay because it's safer. But safe for who though? Because if you have to perform to be loved, that's not love. It's approval. And approval will eventually starve you. You'll get the date, maybe. You might get her body. You might even get her the relationship with her. But here's what you don't get. You won't feel seen. You won't feel safe. You won't feel at home in this connection. And that's because you've never allowed yourself to fully be in the room in a present way. Let that land. Every time you hide your truth, you're telling yourself, I am not worthy of love unless I perform. You're telling your inner world, stay quiet. She can't handle you. Stay out of sight. You're too much. Or stay silent. You're going to ruin everything. And the tragedy is this. That version of you, the one who's been silenced, that's the exact part that could actually build connection. Exactly that part that could actually create trust. That's the exact same part that could actually hold love. Because love does not grow where we're strongest. Love actually grows where we're the realest. Okay? So let me ask you something. What part of you are you still apologizing for? What version of you have you locked away in order to be loved? And what would it mean to bring that you into the light? Bringing it into the light not to be fixed, not to be impressive, but just to be seen. Because the longer that you're hiding from that version, the more love will feel like an act, like a negotiation, like something that you have to win. But love isn't something that you win. It's actually something that you reveal. And you can't reveal what you've disowned. See, the work of intimacy isn't about becoming a better version of you. It's about becoming the honest version of you, because you can dress up your growth all you want, but if your soul still feels exiled from your relationships, you'll always feel like a stranger in your own love story. See, you don't need to be more impressive. You need to be more true. That's where the shift happens. When you realize that you're not building love on top of your performance, it's then that you reclaim the parts that you don't know, or that you did not know that these parts that were allowed to actually belong. That's what she's trying to feel. Not just whether you're good enough for her, but whether you're actually whether you're actually whether you know that you're good enough for you, without proving, without hiding, without performing, just as you are. Because when you're still performing, everything becomes a strategy, right? Even vulnerability becomes a form of manipulation. Instead that you reveal your pain just enough to appear open, and you tell a story just enough to check that intimacy box, and you share your trauma, but just enough to justify your distance. But nothing real really lands, because even the sharing is wrapped in armor. And here's what happens next. What happens next is she pulls away, and you call her cold. You say she's avoidant. You say she's emotionally unavailable. You say women don't want good men. But she was never actually avoiding you. She was avoiding the performance. She was avoiding the tension that she felt in the space between your words. She was avoiding the subtle self-abandonment that you brought into the room with you. Because no matter how tender your tone may have been, if you're still hiding, she's going to sense or feel it. And she won't know why she doesn't feel safe, but she will trust that signal internally, because women have to. So here's the truth, my dear listener. If she doesn't feel safe with you, it's not because she's broken. It's because she's tuned in. And she can feel when you're in the room, but not in your body. And she can feel when you're saying the right words, but you're not actually feeling the truth behind them. She can feel most likely when you're being kind, yes, but not emotionally present. She can feel the gap. And I think you can too, if you haven't deadened your sense to it. You feel it every time you overthink the text. You feel it every time that you tense up before seeing her. Every time that you prepare yourself to say the right thing instead of the real thing. That tension is a signal. It's your body trying to tell you, there's still a part of me that I haven't brought into the light yet. Or there's still a truth that I'm afraid to be seen in. Or there's still a boy inside of me who's afraid to speak without a script. And that boy doesn't need to be shamed. He doesn't need to be shamed. He needs to be welcomed. He needs to be re-met. He needs to know that he's not too much. He needs to know that love doesn't come after growth. It actually begins with the moment that he's finally seen. And know what happens next? See, when you stop performing and when you stop editing yourself to be palatable, when you let your pain and your tenderness and your hunger have room to breathe, it's then that she leans in. She leans in not because you're perfect, not because you said the right thing the right way, but because she actually felt you. She sensed you because she felt your heartbeat in the room, because she saw you give yourself permission to be real, and it invited her to do the same as well. This is what intimacy is. Intimacy is not, it's not about being impressive, but it's about being accessible. And you become accessible when you're emotionally available to yourself. When you can feel your own feelings without shame. And when you can hold space for your own anger without exploding. And when you can also cry without offering any apology for crying. When you can say, I'm afraid and I still don't know if I'm worthy of love. That's the version of you that she wants. That's the version who can actually build safety. See, that's the version of you who can actually make her stay. Not because, again, you've earned it, but because finally she can rest. And isn't that what you want? Not a woman who stays because she's impressed, but because she feels held. Because your truth feels like a place that she can exhale in. So let's go back to the question. Are you ready? Are you really ready? Are you really ready not to impress? Not ready to date, not ready to seduce, not ready to perform. But are you ready to be seen? Because if the answer is no, that's not a reason for shame. No, that's a reason to begin. Begin with the mirror, not the dating app, not the text, and not the apology. Begin with the version of you that you've avoided. Look at yourself in the mirror and see that part that you've avoided. Bring him home. See, there's a moment that changes everything. And it's not the moment that you finally get the relationship. It's not when she chooses you, as much as that might seem. It's not when someone says, I love you. But it's the moment that you stop waiting to be chosen by someone else and you start choosing yourself. Not as a slogan and not as a new performance, but as a return to the version of you who's been aching to be felt. Because underneath all of this, all the reaching, all the approval, all the seeking, all the self-improvements, behind all of this, there's a simple truth. And that is, you've been waiting for someone to make it safe to be real. The thing is, it was never their job, though. It was actually your job. Only you can declare yourself lovable. Only you can meet your own honesty. Only you can walk back into the room of your own emotions and say, I'm not hiding on you anymore. This part of me is legitimized. And see, when you do that, once you stop abandoning yourself, you become magnetic. Not because you're perfect, no, but it's because you're present, because you're real, because she feels in your touch and in your voice and in your gaze that element of integrity, that alignment internally. Integrity is the foundation of safety, you see, and safety is the foundation of intimacy. There's that progression there. You can't create intimacy if you're still at war with yourself. And you can't offer love if you're ashamed of your own needs. And you can't protect her. You can't protect her heart if you're punishing your own heart. So here's my invitation, dear listener. Before you touch her body, you need to touch your truth. Before you reach for her softness, reach for your own. Before you ask to be chosen, first choose yourself by seeing yourself fully, tenderly, without flinching. Because every time you flinch at your own truth, you're reinforcing the lie that you are not worthy. And if that's the lie that's running beneath your relationships, no matter how good things seem, they will never feel safe. But when you meet yourself, when you sit with the pain and the ache instead of trying to outgrow it, when you allow yourself to be seen in your unfinishedness, that's where love lives. That's where trust begins. That's where presence is born. And she's not looking for a man with no wounds. She's actually looking for a man who's not afraid of his own wounds. A man who can sit with her without actually collapsing into performance. A man who doesn't disappear when things get a little uncomfortable. A man who knows that intimacy is less about saying the right thing and more about staying when the truth gets hard. See, you don't need to become someone else to be loved. You need to remember who you were before you learned to hide, and legitimize that version of you and celebrate that version of you and sit with that version. And yes, that might feel terrifying. Yes, it might feel unnatural. Yes, it might actually stir grief that you did not know you were carrying. But that grief, my dear listener, is not weakness. It's actually a potential for release. It's like the shedding of everything that never really fit, everything that made you palatable, everything that never made you whole. So no, you're not broken. You're not too much. You're not failing because you haven't found the right words yet. You're just unpracticed at being known. You're just unfamiliar with being loved without the performance. You're just waking up to the possibility that possibly you were never unworthy. You were just never allowed to be seen. But now you are allowed to be seen. Right here in this moment, right now, in the mirror, stand or sit in front of a mirror, in that silence, in that place where no one else has to validate you, where no one else has to say, where no one else has to choose you, because you have that opportunity to look at yourself and say, I choose you. And from that place, you can stop reaching for love like it's a reward from others. And instead, you can start relating to love like it's your birthright. Not because you've done enough, but because you've actually healed enough. Because you've stopped hiding. Because you've seen yourself and said, I am worthwhile. And once you stop hiding, love doesn't feel like a threat anymore. It actually feels like a place you can call home. So if you hear nothing else from this episode today, I want you to hear this, okay? Just give me your, if I've lost you, just listen here. You don't need to be more ready. You just need to be more real. And the first person who deserves your full presence is you. Not her, not them, not me, but you. Because before you touch her, before you ask to hold her pain and her softness and her soul, learn to hold your own. Meet your own eyes in the mirror and say, I'm here. I'm done with hiding. I'm ready to be known. That's when love becomes possible. That's when intimacy can begin. That's when you're finally ready. Not to perform, but to connect. Let me know in the comments if this spoke to you. I'd love to hear from you.